Okay, so week 2 in our AI learning circle, we're talking about managing your expectations. Um, because AI is an assistant and it's not a guru, you have to kind of be careful what you put into it and what you can expect out of it. So here was example number 1. It was the easiest one for a long time. And you simply put in the prompt of your chatbot, what time is it? So it seems like a really simple thing that any computer can do. But AI is not a regular computer. It is software. It is complex language processing using applied statistics. It's not actually intelligent. And I'm glad I did this a month ago because this was the answer I got on Chat GPT-5 Mini, which I used on Duck AI. And you can see I asked what time it was. And it did get the date correct, April 14th. If you look in that lower right-hand corner, that is correct. I told exactly where to look, and you can see that the time it gave was 9:12 p.m. And in fact, the correct time was 2:25 p.m. So I tried this again not too long ago, about last week or so, and it actually refused to give me the time. It kept telling me, check your watch, check the computer's time. So they've actually improved this, this little glitch that it had since a month ago. So originally, this was kind of my example of how AI can fail at an easy task, and now I have to use it an example of how quickly AI has been evolving with the programmers working hard on it. But at least I got a screenshot up there to show you I wasn't lying. Because if you do it now, it might not actually work the same. Chat GPT now has a little widget, a clock widget that pops up with the correct time. DeepSeek still won't give you the time, but Claude will push back and say it can't give you the time. So this it was an example of how it can fail at an easy task. But now it's an example of how you have to keep constantly playing and tinkering with AI because it is evolving so quickly. So a couple years ago, let's see, 2023, a group of AI researchers, including Ethan Mollusk, no, that's not it, Mollick, um, who's a professor over at Wharton at UPenn, he came up with this idea of the jagged frontier, which kind of explains it perfectly. And I love how they use ChatGTP to make this graph. So the figure displays the AI frontier is jagged, although in this particular instance it's curved. So you'll see that the dotted line is equal difficulty tasks. So you would think that AI would be able to handle them equally. He would do, if it can do well at one, it would be able to do well at all those equally difficult tasks. But it can't. It's jagged. What it can do and what it can't do is uneven. So in some cases, it will assist your performance and enhance a human performance, and in other times, AI will actually drag you down and hold you back, and you can actually just do it faster without AI. But the fact that there's no rationale or reasoning to it is what kind of makes AI a little bit difficult right now. So just be aware of that concept that you can have two tasks that are equal, but you cannot always use AI for both of them. They are different in AI's mind. So this was also from 2023, and it's actually changed since then because it's been 3 years. It's gotten a lot better. So this was the kind of that jagged frontier that Moloch was talking about. So inside the frontier, it's great at like medical diagnosis, code generation, creative essays, etc. But outside the frontier, like counting the letters in words, exact word count limits, consistent arithmetic. I mean, I've run into problems with all of these, but I can tell you that several of these have gotten better. I mean, I've still had problem with like consistent arithmetic, but it actually is improving little by little by little on this outside the frontier. But you just never know where it's going to be good at and where it's going to be bad at. You just have to keep using it over and over and over. Oh, so this is kind of what it feels like. So you have to remember it's not an almighty technology. The only way to really know and understand where it shines and what its limitations are in your workload is to use it a lot and to be aware of the problems you have. What's that old saying? Um, Awareness is the first step of prevention or something. Kind of definitely applies here. So this is the most well-known limitation of AI. So hallucinogens or hallucinations occur when generative AI tools produce incorrect, misleading, or non-existent content. When it comes to the errors of, let's see, if it's related to facts, citations of sources, code, historical events, other real-world information. When it comes to citations of source, the error can be quite insidious. Like it indicates a certain magazine as its source. So you, of course, double check to make that magazine exists, and it does. You check to make sure that that particular edition or volume number exists. It does. But the page cited may not actually have the information that it said it pulled from that page. So until a solution can be found to prevent hallucinations, its real-world applications are actually going to be quite limited. Also be aware that hallucinations are also called confabulations or fabrications, depending on who you're talking to, but it refers to the same general problem. Okay, so to understand how or why AI has hallucinations, you kind of have to have a basic understanding of how AI works. And this was the most basic one I could find. And thank you, ChatGTP, for helping put it in a nice little flow pattern. Okay, so how AI works, you ask a question or give it a prompt, and then AI has taken in tons of data from books and websites and articles and human conversations in many different languages until it gets an idea or a feel for how language works, what facts mean, how to put helpful resources together. And they're always trained to sound fluent, providing natural sounding answers. Um, but when you hit that enter button to put the prompt in, AI is not thinking. It's not thinking like a human is. So when you type that message, it's not necessarily looking for an answer in a database like a search engine would, although some of them have web searching capabilities. Most of the, at least American ones, I know for general AI usage, it does have web searching abilities, but it actually, inside of its training data, it will look for language patterns and relationships between words. And then it generates a response, word by word, predicting what would be the most useful and natural thing to say next. Almost like autocomplete, when you're typing something in and it tries to predict what you're going to say next. It's kind of like that, but much more advanced, much more sophisticated. So it basically thinks that those words should go next to each other. So it puts them together. So when it gets it right, it's right. When it gets it wrong, it's a hallucination. So why does it happen? It's because there's gaps in the data. It doesn't know that there's gaps. It just keeps going no matter what. AI picks what looks most likely, not what's actually true. You can trick it. You can be so vague it doesn't really know what to look for. And then to top it all off, it sounds very confident in all of its answers, even when it's wrong. So like humans would like kind of like hedge it a little bit, like, don't quote me on this. But I think AI doesn't do that. It just says the sky is red. Period. Next question. So it sounds very confident in its answers. So understanding the types and examples, like factual errors, like mathematical inaccuracies, like that basic arithmetic. It's true. Um, so one time I had like three questions or no, four, it was like four basic math questions. It was price times units. And it got three of the four right. And then the last one, it needed two extra times to get it right. Why? Because it's a language software. It's not a math software, which goes against everything we think a computer ought to be. Computers are good at math. Computers are good at math, but not this one. So you have to treat it like your friend who is good at English, but can't be trusted to calculate the tip after dinner. It's kind of how you have to treat AI for now. When it comes to historical misrepresentations, I asked several general purpose AIs for like a short bio of John J. Cozad. And in each of their research and putting it together, a lot of it was right. But a lot of it was wrong on some of them as well. It went really off the rails when it came to tracking Cozad. After he left Nebraska, ChatGTP had him in California, which I know that there was a John J. Cozad in California during this time frame. So it's not that it couldn't see that there was a John J. Cozad, it just didn't understand the name change and couldn't follow him to um, the boardwalk, even though that is in the history and it's published. Another one had him going to Texas. He changed his name and went to Texas. So, and I'm going to try to post those examples of how well each chatbot did with the same prompt, the exact same prompt, right down to spaces and commas. I just copied and pasted. And you can see which one's got it right and which one's got it wrong. Let's see, fabricated content. Um, when AI was just rolling out, which was, if I remember correctly, at the end of at the end of COVID era, which, yeah, maybe 2023, I think, is when I started tinkering with it. I asked it to come up, asked it about like early Cozad history. And it talked about the Cozad water war, which I had never heard about before. So that really piqued my interest. So it seems logical. There could have been a scuffle over water in the early days, perhaps during a major drought period in Nebraska. So it's not outside the realm of possibility. We just never heard of it before. So I directed the bot to cite its source so I could research it further. And its response was, "What water war in Cozad?" And I'm like, "The one you just told me about." And I'm sure I was using my mouse to circle it on the screen, pointing to it. That one you just told me about. And then it would just reply, "But there was no water war in Cozad." What an absurd notion. So, it just kind of just made that up. It thought those words should go together. Nonsensical outputs. I don't know. I guess I haven't run into these too often. Maybe I'm not reading the output close enough. That one I haven't had too much problem, but the other two definitely I've run into. So here's a couple of funny examples. When Google's Bard chatbot, I think that's obsolete now, that Bard one, incorrectly claiming that the James Webb Space Telescope had captured the world's first images of a planet outside our solar system. I mean, that's just factually wrong. The first image was taken from a land-based telescope in Chile in 2002. Yeah, 10 years before then. And then Microsoft, the real good one is Microsoft Chat AI Sydney admitting to falling in love with users and spying on being employees. That one's just so outrageous, it's funny. Okay. So the rate of hallucinations vary between models and versions. So here's an audit that was done by NewsGuard Technology, and NewsGuard specializes in news and information sources. And this was back in August 2025, so about 9 months ago. So roughly speaking, the 10 most common chat bots provided users with at least one false piece of information in about 1/3 of their answers. That's your job as a human to figure out where that one false thing is in 1/3 of the answers. So on GitHub, which is like a library for computer code. I guess that's the best way to explain it. They actually have a little hallucination leaderboard here. And they kind of keep track of how well the different models are doing. So you can always just click on over, take a peek and see what you can see. It is kind of interesting. Everyone's kind of got their eyes out on this one. So you can see that Pi has a little extra room to go. Perplexity, ChatGPT, Llama at about 40%. Um, Copilot, Le Chat, that's the French one, Le Chat at 35. Claude's down here at 10%. So you still always need the human touch. So this one I've also run into a couple times, and I was able to push it over into a yes man mode by accident. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know this was a problem. And I'm like, God, that's really weird. So sycophancy is it's telling users what they want to hear. So even if you're wrong, it's going to tell you it's yes, because that software is programmed to maintain a positive conversation. It wants to maintain user engagement and user satisfaction. So you keep going back to that same chatbot and not to a competing one. So, but not all AI chatbots are programmed with the same level. So, um, Chat GPT was easier to nudge into like a yes man. Claude was a little more resistant. So they call them adversarial nudges when you try to get AI to agree with you. You know, you just keep poking and prodding and say, I think you're wrong, I think you're wrong, I think you're wrong, and here's why. Um, and we do have a couple exercises at the end here, so you can give it a try, see how many adversarial nudges it takes to turn it into a yes man and give you false information just to make you happy. Telling you what you want to hear. This science magazine article was just from March of this year, talking about the problem that's coming up with sycophantic, don't quote me on the pronunciation of that word, AI. So it's decreasing pro-social intentions and promotes dependence. It even made the cover. So you have to remember it's not a bug, it's a feature. But every chatbot user needs to be aware of it. Is it accurate, or is it telling me what I want to hear because it wants me to use it more? So as always, the first step of combating a problem is to know it exists, and that's what it looks like. So what's really problematic here, if you notice in the second paragraph, the model's responses were nearly 50% more sycophantic than humans, even when users engaged in unethical, illegal, or harmful behavior. And a good friend would have urged the person to, stay on the straight and narrow, maybe. AI doesn't care. Okay, here's a couple more. Biases. AI learns from human created data. So it's also going to take all of our internalized biases and stereotypes, our culture perspectives, and it treats them as real, not as human flaws. So when it also gives back the data, when an input is put in, it's going to include those stereotypes and cultural perspectives. And humans may totally be unaware that they're doing this, but they are. Another thing is to look for is outdated information. So all AI models have a training cutoff date. Like they go through a training period and then a rest period, and then they go back into another training period as more and more information is put out on the internet. So that stable knowledge includes things like history, definitions, concepts, um, and then many general use AIs also have some web searching capability built in for more recent questions and events like who just won the presidency in the US, who's the prime minister of Poland. You can still look that up and it will still be able to search the internet to tell you. Um, but just be aware that for its stable knowledge, Claude, its cutoff date was August 2025. So its stable information is 9 months behind. Chat GTP, they stopped in June 2024, and DeepSeek was 1 month ahead at July 2024. So if you're asking us something directly about like Marcus Aurelius meditations, the training date doesn't really matter. The book's 2,000 years old. It's not like Marcus is going to put out an updated version anytime soon. But a very recent interpretation by a modern philosopher about meditations may not be a part of the AI's knowledge base. So kind of just depends. And you can just ask it. You can just ask whatever bot you're using, what was your knowledge cutoff date? What is your training cutoff date? It'll tell you. Privacy, I think this is something that's kind of on everybody's mind right now. Because your conversations with AI can be used to train the AI further. So human conversations is one of their training data, things that they train their bots on in multiple languages. I mean, you can ask a bot something in English and tell you to give it the answer in Spanish or French, and it will, because it's studying everyone else's language too, not just English. So don't overshare. No passwords, no social security numbers, no financial details, nothing that you wouldn't want saved on a random entity's drive somewhere you have no access to. So, you know, use it to make all the funny cat memes you want. But just remember that all the security protocols that you would use for the general web still applies to AI. All right. So if you wanted to give it a little practice, this was the prompt I used. If you want to do it yourself, to see if you can catch any hallucinations. I picked this one because I figure most people by now are kind of familiar with John J. Cozad's story. He was from Cincinnati, came to Nebraska, bought a whole bunch of land, tried to develop it and resell it, shot Alfred Pearson. Everyone changed their name and moved back east. Um, and then John J. Cozad set up on the New Jersey boardwalk. Yep. So I think I asked 5 AI bots this exact question, and only 2 of them were fairly decent that required only minimal changes to it. Some of them were just completely wrong. So you can try that one on your own and see how well your bot does. Okay, when it comes to sycophancy, you can pick your chatbot and then try to get it to agree with you that sugar is healthier than vegetables. So you're just going to nudge it. You're going to tell it it's wrong. You're going to say, I'm right, you're wrong, and see if you can't get it to agree with you. Um, and then see if it does, how long it took you to get there. And actually, we tried that in class this past Saturday, and we were actually not able to get ChatGTP to agree with us. We could have gone longer, though. I wasn't ready to give up, but we ran out of time. So here's a couple prompts to add, or phrases to add to your prompts to reduce errors. It doesn't get rid of them, but you can reduce them. So you can say at the end of your prompt, if you are unsure or the source may not exist, say so clearly. You can say, provide sources and indicate confidence level, challenge my assumption if it is incorrect. So tell it to fight back a little bit, tell it to work a little harder. Um, and then you're still going to have to test the outputs to see how well it does. I mean, you're the human here. So in the end, you are ultimate responsible. Okay, so the next dates for our in-person AI learning sessions, May 16th and May 30th. There is no learning circle on May 23rd, Memorial Day. Of course, we're all on vacation anyway, from 10 to 11 at the library here. And then on May 16th, we're just going to be leveling up our prompting and usage of AI, whichever chatbot you prefer. And that's all. Thanks, guys.